Welcome to Doctors Unbound, your show devoted to doctors who are, well, unbound by physician stereotypes. Get a behind-the-scenes look at doctors that are breaking the mold and breaking into the worlds of technology, writing, investing, politics, just to name a few. This is Doctors Unbound, where you'll hear from experts with the insights to help you go to the next level. Let's get this show started. Here is your host, Dr. Dave Draginas.
Welcome to another edition of the Doctors Unbound podcast. This one is going to be a solo episode. There is a lot of meaty stuff that was given to us in the last podcast and the interview. And in this episode, this is going to be just me, and we are going to talk about mindset. Mindset is one of those things that just seems to come up with a lot of these interviews. It's very important for success, achievement. And what I want to do is dig a lot deeper into mindset, and the setup, the infrastructure for this talk is going to be a book that I read not that long ago. The book is called Mindset. The subtitle is The New Psychology of Success, and the book is by Carol Dweck, PhD. I believe she's out of Stanford. So that's going to be kind of the framework for this talk. I found her book to be incredibly inspirational, a great read for me for a lot of different reasons. So I'm going to talk about some of the key points in the book. Recommend that you go out and read it if you haven't. So we'll talk a little bit about it today. Hopefully, at least from this talk, you'll be able to get a couple of key pointers about mindset that will make a difference for you in your career, in your business, in your relationships, and make it worthwhile. So mindset. The book talks really about two different mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And it really resonated with me because reading the book, I remembered some stories from back in elementary school. Like probably most physicians out there, I was one of the top students in my class. And one of my teachers had this habit of, once we'd take our tests, she would grade them. And then she would announce to the class, there were, 3 A's on this test. And I remember her doing this, and whenever she would announce, the number of A's, whether it was 1 or 5, usually the people in the class, the other students would kind of look over at me, and I was expected to be one of those grades that got an A. And a lot of times I was, but obviously not every time. But I remember this fear would come over me whenever she would announce that, as the students would look over and she would start reading off the names. And there was almost like this sort of sigh of relief if in fact I was one of the people who was on the list, kind of like, whoa, okay, I guess I made it through this test again. So I remember this very vividly from elementary school. And then I remember we would have, like, once a year or something, there would be a spelling bee, for the school. And then there would be a spelling bee champion. And then they would go on to district and things like that. And I never prepared for it. And, spelling bees have become something that are televised on ESPN these days. And there are kids that work their butts off and study and are national spelling bee champions. And wow, are they amazing, because they can spell some words that I can never spell. But I remember having these spelling bees at school, and again, I would have this sickness to my stomach the day that the test was, because I knew that everyone was expecting me to do well or win, and I would literally get sick to my stomach the day of the spelling bee, because now this was not only was this a test that you were taking, but now this was an oral test in front of all the classmates, and you would sit there and everybody would have to spell out in front of everybody. And I just remember getting so nervous before these tests, whether I did well or not. So as we get more into the book and the different mindsets, this was kind of a fear of failure, a fear of being exposed as a fraud for some reason that was kind of built into me and my mindset. And I think having some elements of a fixed mindset. So let's kind of get into the book a little bit. like I mentioned, there's two basic kind of mindsets that the book talks about. There's a fixed mindset, which is basically a belief that qualities are carved into stone, and with this belief, there's always an urgency to prove yourself over and over. Kind of this fear of failure, fear of not proving yourself this time, and what that means for yourself and your ego. But contrary to that, there is a growth mindset, and with the growth mindset, there's a belief that your basic qualities can be cultivated through your efforts. So talents, interests, temperaments even, they can change and they can grow through our application and experience. So this is the growth mindset, and it's something that can be very, very powerful. And as we kind of contemplate these two different mindsets, I want you to think a little bit about success. And is success about learning, or is success about proving that you're smart? Ask yourself honestly, if it's about proving yourself, chances are that you are becoming what I would call a non-learner, and you might be afraid to try new things. And one way to kind of reset ourselves is really to think about and become like very young kids. Young kids before teachers, students, and coaches kind of get a hand on them. They are very curious. They want to learn about their environment. They have like this fearlessness about just learning, checking things out. They are not afraid of failing at all. I am blessed with 3 small children. Their ages right now are about 4, 2.5, and 10 months. So it's a full house in the Draginas household. But I have noticed this over the last few years firsthand. And my second, Matthew, who's about 2.5, he is just a fearless explorer. And I remember he was not quite 2 years old. He was probably about 2 months from his second birthday. And we have this little play set in the backyard. And there's a little ladder. And then right next to the ladder, there's a rock wall. Not high, probably about 4 or 5 feet. And a little rock wall. Well, Matthew figured out the stairs or the ladder pretty quickly to get up to that second level so he can go down the slides. But pretty quickly after he figured out the ladder, he just needed to move on to the rock wall. And at first I kind of wanted to keep him away because I didn't want him to fall and hurt himself, but he was just persistent. He needed to figure out the rock wall, and of course that required a lot more coordination. Where was he going to put his hands? Where was he going to put his feet? Different places. Those rocks, if you will, are at different locations, and he was just adamant about figuring it out. So of course I'm not going to let him just fall down every time. So I would kind of sit behind him just to make sure that he wouldn't fall. But I was just so impressed at how relatively quickly he figured it out. And obviously it wasn't in a day, it wasn't even in a couple days, but he was persistent. He kept trying, he kept failing, but he kept coming back. And gosh, he got it pretty quickly. I mean, maybe it was a couple weeks, and he was going up that rock wall no problem. And that was kind of an aha moment for me, because I was like, man, am I modeling what he just modeled? How am I reacting to new things in my life, new things to learn, new opportunities to learn and grow? Am I embracing it like Matthew embraced that little rock wall, or is there this fear of failure creeping in, this fear of, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure this out or figure it out quickly enough, and what will people think of me if I can't figure this thing out? So we're supposed to be the ones teaching our kids, and we do, but man, sometimes they teach you a very important lesson. So getting a little bit more deeply into these two different mindsets, I'll start with the fixed mindset. And in this mindset, the idea is either you have an ability, with the fixed mindset, there's kind of two competing ideas. Either you're a person who has ability, or you have to put in effort. Kind of like the idea of the tortoise and the hare, right? And you think about it, the tortoise just kept plodding along, and here was this hare that had all this ability, all this speed, but it gets lazy, and in the end, the tortoise wins, right? So, not really the greatest story if you think about it, because if you think about it, one of the messages is kind of like, well, either you have ability or you have to try. And in reality, it doesn't have to be an either or thing. Sure, there's some innate ability that we have, but that ability has to be cultivated through effort. There's this cultural mystique that seems to permeate our society of this effortless perfection. And I think it's simply not true. Whether you look at sports heroes like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, and you really think about their routines of what they've actually gone through to get to their level, and then not just to get to the level, but to maintain and improve and become world class. If you really get into their stories, we see that their talents had to be honed and cultivated over many, many hours. So in the growth mindset, we learn that even geniuses have to work hard for their success. And I really like this sentence from the book. It goes like this: effort is what ignites ability and turns it into accomplishments. That's like a tweetable sentence right there, I think. So one more time: effort is what ignites ability and turns it into accomplishment. So yeah, I think that is just super powerful, and if we can just apply that to any aspect of our life, man, I think that will really jumpstart our success. And this idea of mindset can really affect just about every aspect of our life. It is relevant to school and learning. It's relevant to sports, to the business world, even to relationships. You name it, and this is something that can apply to it. And a growth mindset really can help in each aspect of these areas. A lot of times we think of fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and we apply it to, something like IQ or intelligence. But think about other aspects of life. Think about artistic ability, or musical talent, or relationships even. How you approach a relationship. Do you expect a relationship to be something that is perfect, easy all the time, otherwise there's some fatal flaw? Or do you think of a relationship as something that needs to be worked on and cultivated? Very, very powerful, I think. So where do these mindsets come from? Well, a lot of our mindset comes from parents, teachers, and coaches. So if you fit one of those bills, guess what? You have a profound effect on all of those impressionable minds around you. And so for myself, having 3 little ones, this book has been hugely impactful for me, not just for my personal development, but also in the development of my children. And obviously, no parent is going to wake up in the morning and think, geez, today I really want to undermine my kids. However, what we say to them and how we act can either give them one of these mindsets, either put them in a fixed mindset where we're telling them, you have a permanent trait, you have permanent traits, and I'm judging you. Or the way we act with them, the way we interact with them, we can put them in a growth mindset where our message to them is, you are a developing person and I am interested in your development. I want to share a little story here. My oldest is Caitlin, and Caitlin is a little more than 4 years old. And I've really been intentional with this topic in how I come across to her, how I interact with her, because I don't want her to be handicapped with some of these ideas of the fixed mindset that, I've recognized that I have myself and I'm working through. So, sometimes I wonder, though, you wonder with your kids, you tell them things, and the next day you tell them the same thing, and the next day you kind of tell them the same thing, and you wonder if any of it is getting through. But the other day, Caitlin says to me, she says, "Daddy, it's okay to make mistakes because I'm learning and I'm getting better." And, that's something that I harp on her all the time. Not harp, but I try to tell her because, she might be doing her letters. And, I noticed, for example, that she didn't want to work on letters that she didn't know. She wanted to keep practicing the ones that she knew how to do really well. And I was trying to get her to do the other ones and, sort of work on the ones that she wasn't so good at. And I just kept telling her, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And, I could tell that she didn't like it. But when she made those comments to me, that really just kind of made me light up. It made me so happy to hear her say that. Time will tell if these lessons will stick. I think it's something where it's not something that you just set it and forget it and you've done it once and you're done. I think this is something that will be ongoing, the way me and my wife talk to her, interact with her, teach her, probably even the way we screen for her teachers, her coaches, things like that. We'll have to screen for people who are in the growth mindset. I think that will be super powerful. So I'm not going to keep this one too long. I want this to be kind of a shorter episode where we talk about certain topics that I think will add value to our lives as physicians, or maybe certain aspects of our career or development, etc. So I'm going to start wrapping this up, but that pretty much touches on some of the highlights of this book that I wanted to share with you. I hope this has been beneficial for you. I hope a couple of these key things have sparked some deeper thoughts in your mind about mindset, how you approach new challenges, how you approach opportunities, how you approach relationships. And those can be with spouse, it could be with children, it could be with parents, with friends. It doesn't really matter. And hopefully this will help you improve in this area and bring more meaningfulness in those aspects of your life. So once again, the book is called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. It's by Carol Dweck, PhD, and I will definitely link to it in the show notes so you can get a hold of it if you'd like to. So in conclusion, I'd like to end with a question. A question for you out there, very, very curious. Is there something you've always wanted to do but were afraid of failing? Is there something out there that you've really, really wanted to do, but you're just afraid of not getting it done, of failing? Well, I would like to encourage you today, make a plan to do it. Like Nike says, just do it. And let me know what it is. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what it is that you're thinking about, what you're struggling with. You can email me at doctorsunbound.com, or you can reach me on Facebook or Twitter. Reach out to me and let me know what it is that you've been wanting to do but have been afraid of. All right? We are going to wrap up this episode. Looking forward to hearing from you. And till the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Doctors Unbound podcast. Remember to head over to doctorsunbound.com to access all the show notes and resources discussed in this episode. Now, it's your turn to be unbound.